Hi and welcome to another tutorial. Today we will look at creating a rate using an instrument. I believe that the ability to create a rate is an indispensable tool for any radionic practitioner. We will also look at our own method that we have been using for the last 15 years and also a fun idea that I've been playing around with. The question then is, what can we use to create a rate? The answer is basically anything. A remedy where there's no rate for yet, a name written on a piece of paper, a list of homeopathic remedies, a picture of anything, a affirmation, or even fresh herbs. We will start by exploring two of the more traditional versions, and then I also will show you one that I found much easier and that works fantastic. First question that we normally ask is, do I use this dial? If the answer is yes, then you will proceed, and if the answer is no, you will basically stop there and you don't need to go any further. Let us look at the two different versions, and in the first version is that you can start to slowly turn the dial until you get a positive response on your pendulum. Now my problem with this is that what will happen if you land between two different numbers? Like in the case here, between 7 and 8. Is the value 7 or is it 8? You can ask the pendulum and then readjust to 7 or 8, but I personally feel it leaves a gap in the productivity or the efficiency of the system. Second version of this would be to start putting your dial on the first digit, if we're doing, for instance, base 10 in this case, and then ask, would it be 1? If the answer is no, then you progress to number 2 and then ask the question if it's number 2, and then if not, then you carry on to number 3 until you eventually get a positive response. As you can see, this is a bit of a tedious and slow process, but that's a more accurate and productive way of doing it. Let us now have a look at my own version, and here I have to really admit that I haven't used this in the last 15 years because I'm using my own system that's working much better and faster as far as I'm concerned. So let's start by taking a sample of a remedy that have not been used as a rate before or have no rate. I will normally start by selecting the base that I'm going to work in, and that will be in this case base 10. I will then place my finger on the first dial and ask the question, do I need or do I use this dial? If the answer is yes, then I will proceed from here asking the question, what is the value of the dial, and count upwards rather than turning the dial. So let's start by, is the value of dial 1 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? And I get a positive response on 3. So I'll then adjust the dial to 3. I'll then go to the second dial and ask the same question. Do I use this dial? The answer is yes. Is the value of dial 2 1? I get a positive response. So I will put dial 2 on 1. Then proceed to dial 3. Do I use dial 3? I get a positive response. Is the value of dial 3 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? And I get a positive response on 3. I will then adjust the dial to 3. We'll then go to dial 4. Do I use dial 4? Answer is yes. Is the value of dial 4 1? The value 2. I get a positive response. And then I will adjust it to 2. And then proceed to dial 5. Do I use dial 5? Get a positive response. Is the value of dial 5 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 6? And I get a positive response on 6. So I'll adjust the dial to 6. I'll then proceed to dial 6. Do I use dial 6? I've got a no response. I'll normally just double check and go to dial 7 because it might be that dial 6 could be a 0, especially in a base 10 setup. So do I use dial 7? And the answer is no. And that means that the basic rate for base 10 for my remedy would be then 3, 1, 3, 2, 6. And that's how you create a base 10 rate. Let us then look at how to create a rate in base 44. Start by switching to base 44 and bring our dials all back to 0 again. Because we'll now already know that it's going to be a rate which has 5 dials, it makes the process slightly easier. And because of we're using base 44, I also use a slightly different option here, and that is that we will break everything up into groups or categories. By that I mean, rather than counting upwards from 1, 2, 3 up to 44, I will normally start with, is the dial between 0 and 10, so 10 or 20, 20 or 30, 30 or 44. That makes the process slightly easier to work with, and that speeds up the process. So let's start. We're going to ask if the dial 1 is between 0 and 10, and we get a positive response. We're now going to count up. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? 6? 7? Is it 8? I get a positive response on 8. So my first dial will be then on 8. We'll then proceed to the second dial. Is the value of dial 2 between 0 and 10? Between 10 and 20, get a positive response. So is the value of dial 2 10? Is it 11? Is it 12? Is it 13? And I get a positive response on 13. So dial 2 will then go to 13. We will proceed to dial 3. Is the value of dial 3 between 10 and 20, 20 and 30. Because the lowest number of our previous dial was 13, we will starting from there. Because a base 44 rate will be progressively going upwards. So we start as dial 3 with 13. Of course, we can have a double permutation. Is it 14? Is it 15? Get a positive response on 15. Then put our dial on 15. We then proceed to dial 4. Is the value of dial 4 between 10 and 20? Get a positive response. Of course, dial 3 was already on 15, that's where we will start. Is the value of dial 4 15? Is it 16? I get a positive response for 16. So my dial 4 will then become 16. And we will then proceed to the last dial, dial 5. Is the value of dial 5 between 10 and 20? 20 to 30. I get a response for 20 to 30. So we'll count up from 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and I get a response for 29. So dial 5 will be 29, and that will mean that my rate for base 44 then for this remedy would be 8, 13, 15, 16, and 29. And that's how you create a rate for base 44. I also said I want to show you guys a fun project that I'm working on, and that would be my rate book, or searchable rate book for that matter. You can actually just type in part of a word. Now I do find that it's a little bit slow in reaction, almost like me. and then I can find the rate that I'm looking for quite easily. Now this is one way of doing it. I also found another way of playing around with the system where I'm going to use the same remedy structure that we used to create our rate for, and I'm going to just paste it in here, and it will give me the rates for that. Now, most often you will say, what's the use of that? That's easy to do and it's not a big issue. But now I have a different function. This system is now linked to my present instrument, and I can actually take all of these remedies and then send it to my system or to my instrument. So by pressing the start button, I'm now sending all these remedies with their rates to my instrument, and I can actually then make up a remedy based on this without calculating a rate. So I thought that was part of a new venture, of a new idea, and I'm still working on this and see where it will take me. When you have finished, copy the remedy onto your instrument or into a liquid or whatever, you can just stop sending it, and that's it. You have now actually successfully copied a remedy or a set of rates into a remedy as you would have normally done on an instrument. And that was my fun project for today. I hope you enjoyed it and hope things had made sense for you. In my next video, I'm gonna look at the A4 plate, and I already said that. This was then some of the ideas of how you can actually calculate a rate using your instrument or other means. Now in our next tutorial, I'm going to look at a tool that I think is unknown and unappreciated in some cases, and that's the A4 plate. And I'll hope to see all of you guys there. Thank you.